Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Retro Wrestling Review Series, Season 4, Episode 5. And now I'm going to be reviewing the 1991 Royal Rumble. I hope you guys enjoy it. I don't know anything about the backstory or anything like that, but I'm going to watch the pre-show, then I'm going to watch the real show, and I'm going to do the reviews the exact same way I've been doing them. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and let's get to this Royal Rumble review. Okay, so first we had the pre-show. We had the host, Sean Mooney. And before I actually talk about the build-up to the matches, let me at least say what the matches are going to be on the show. Um, we had we have two tag team matches that are going to be on the show. We have the Rockers, which consisted of Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty versus the Orrington Express, which consisted of Ta- um, Tanaka and Kato. I don't know if that's how you say that or not, but I'm just going with it. Um, and we also have a match between Big Boss Man and the Barbarian. We also have another tag team match. The $1 Million Champion, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and Virgil versus Dusty and Dustin Rhodes. And then we have the two main matches on the show. We have the WWF Championship match, WWF Champion Ultimate Warrior versus Sergeant Slaughter. And obviously, we have the main match, the match that's built around the show, a 30-man Royal Rumble match. So those are going to be the matches on the show. So now let me just kind of talk about the storylines behind these matches by kind of going through the pre-show. So for the WWF Championship match, we have Ultimate Warrior, who ended up at WrestleMania 6, defeating Hulk Hogan to become the brand new WWF Champion, and he was also the first ever multi-champ by retaining his Intercontinental Championship and winning the WWF Championship. And he had they were pushing him for a while. They had finally gone through, and he had defended it against a bunch of superstars. And eventually, Sergeant Slaughter had returned to the WWF. He had been seen in the WWF for a while, and he makes his return. And originally, when Sergeant Slaughter was in the company, he was an American. His whole gimmick is that he's supposed to be like a soldier. He fights for America, but now he turned into an Iraq sympathizer because this was at the time when they had the. Let me just make sure that I have the name right. That they had the Operation Desert Shield, pretty much the Gulf American War. Um, and this is when America was feuding with Iraq at the time, and WWF had capitalized on this opportunity and decided to have Sergeant Slaughter be the big Iraq sympathizer, which I thought was a great idea, and it was a very risky idea, but I think it worked. And Sergeant Slaughter, was now an Iraq sympathizer. He wore the Arab thing that the Iraqs wear, and he also had his manager who was Iraq, General Adnan. I think that's how you say that. And Sergeant Slaughter had challenged Ultimate Warrior for the WWF Championship. He had even received boots from Saddam Hussein, who was an Iraq dictator at that time, and obviously storyline wise, I don't think he really did. And then he had come on to the Brother Love show, and Brother Love was talking with him, and obviously since he's a heel, he liked it. And before they actually showed the part of his promo, Sean Mooney had read a statement that was sent by President Jack Tunney stating that just because pretty much Sergeant Slaughter and General Adnan feel this way, we don't we just want to let you know that us at the WWF don't feel this way. We feel sorry for all the Americans in Iraq. We pretty much like everybody. So I kind of like that they read that letter, probably because WWF knew at that time that they were going to be in some deep shit. So they pretty much said that Sergeant Slaughter and General Adnan are the ones that are the only ones that feel this way. And then he cuts, but on the Brother Love, it shows comments of Sergeant Slaughter cutting a promo on the Ultimate Warrior, calling them the Ultimate Puke, and he said that he's going to take the WWF Championship from the Ultimate Warrior, and he says that afterwards he's gonna wave it over his head like the Iraq flag. And I thought overall he cut a pretty good promo. And then it shows backstage Ultimate Warrior cutting a promo, and he talks about how he even though how he fights for all the men and women in in America, and he fights for all of his warriors out there, and he is going to use that power to dethrone the Iraq sympathizer Sergeant Slaughter and retain his WWF championship. Now, also at this time, something I need to mention is this was at the time when they even had started hinting at the feud between the Macho King Randy Savage and Ultimate Warrior, because Macho King Randy Savage had kept asking Ultimate Warrior for opportunities at his WWF championship, but Ultimate Warrior kept refusing. And obviously, too, he was dealing with this, and he wanted to face Sergeant Slaughter, so that's kind of where because this does get used later on in the match. And then it shows a build up for the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and Virgil, and Dusty and Dustin Rhodes. So how this feud started out was obviously Dusty Rhodes had debuted into the company. He had been in the company for about a year at this point, and he was feuding with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. The $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, had bought the services of his manager at the time, Sapphire, which is kind of racist. The $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. It made sense that they were feuding at the time because Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, was known as the Common Man, and Ted DiBiase was known as the $1 Million Man. He had loads of money, so I think the styles of this feud actually worked, and they were feuding for a while. And during a match on Saturday night's main event between Macho King Randy Savage and the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, Dusty Rhodes' son Dustin Rhodes was sitting ringside watching the match, and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and Virgil were trying to bribe him to join up with him, and he doesn't take the money. And the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and Virgil had beaten the crap out of him. They even hit him off the head with a wooden chair, and eventually, when Dusty Rhodes sees this, he goes outside the ring and is upset about it. And this had caused him to get counted out and lose the match. And afterwards, they had continued to beat on Dustin Rhodes, and it got to the point where the American Dream Dusty Rhodes ended up standing over Dustin Rhodes and taking the beat him, so that way he wouldn't have to be beat anymore. And I thought that was just a really good part of the storyline. And then they did the whole thing where if Dustin Rhodes could last 10 minutes with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, they kind of did that, and he ended up doing so. But he ended up being put out by a sleeper, and the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, they were going to beat him up some more, but he comes out and makes the save before it can happen. And then they were on the Brother Love show, and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, starts talking about how he was impressed that Dustin Rhodes survived more than 10 minutes, and he says that he actually has some potential and he wants to use that, so he wants to buy the services of Dustin Rhodes. And he said that he can have a job like Virgil can, because Virgil can, and he wipes the sweat off my face, he shines my shoes, and he actually has him do this stuff, and he shines Brother Love shoes, and he says that, I can give you all the money, and he slaps the money out of his hand, and then they had beaten the crap out of him there, so that could lead us to the tag team match between the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and Virgil versus Dusty and Dustin Rhodes, and overall, I think it was a great storyline, and I actually care about it. And then they had shown a backstage segment with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and Virgil. The $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, was talking about how Virgil, how everybody feels sorry for Virgil, that he has to do all this stuff for the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, like shine his shoes, wipe the sweat off his face, give him massages. But he says that you really shouldn't feel bad for him, because he's doing this for a purpose, and he's doing this to help his family. And I actually thought he was a good promo. And so they were obviously building up tension between Virgil and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, because they had been together pretty much since Virgil had come into the company, and this was just something they had built up, I believe, for about 3 years. So overall, I thought that was great. And you could see Virgil, he's getting frustrated because he actually has the money and he's actually crimpling the money a little bit. So you can see that Virgil hates doing this now. So they actually kind of went there with it. So I thought that was awesome. So then Dusty and Dustin Rhodes cut a promo, and they talk about how the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, picked on his son. I mean, the Million Dollar Man, Ted DiBiase, picked on his son, Dustin Rhodes, and he says that tonight they're going to find out what it's like when we come after you, and they pretty much said they're going to beat the crap out of him. And overall, I thought it was a really good promo. And the reason why, and I like the way they built up this view where Dusty Rhodes tried to have his son do this himself, just to kind of, not really for tough love, but he wanted to see if he could do this himself. But then eventually he just finally lost it and snapped. So overall, I thought it was good. So then we have the build up for the Big Boss Man Barbarian match. So the reason why this is happening is because Bobby the Brain Heenan was kept making fun of the Big Boss Man's mom, talking about how fat she is and how ugly she is, and he would just make jokes about it every week. Some of them are actually pretty funny. Like there was one where he's like where he talks about how she never has to wear a Halloween costume. It's her favorite day of the year, and he says that all the children are too afraid to go over to the Big Boss Man's house, and he makes a lot of jokes like that, and he says that she's ugly and everything. So eventually the Big Boss Man gets sick of it, and he handcuffs Bobby the Brain Heenan to the railing on the crowd. And eventually he tries to apologize, saying that she's a beautiful woman, because he knows that if Big Boss Man gets him in the ring, he's not going to want to wrestle him. He's going to want to destroy him. So then eventually it led to Big Boss Man wanting to get to each member of the Heenan family, and he said he's going to start with the Barbarian since he's there until he gets to Bobby the Brain Heenan. So I think this is actually a pretty good storyline. And Bobby the Brain Heenan and the Barbarian cut a promo talking about how they're going to destroy the Big Boss Man, and the Big Boss Man cuts a promo saying that everybody in the Heenan family is going to end up doing hard times, because I'm going to take each and every one of them out until it's just left with you, Bobby the Brain Heenan. So I thought that was a good promo. And then they talked about the Walkers and the Orrington Express build-up. There really isn't much of a build-up. The reason why they're feuding is because the Walkers refuse to bow down to the Orrington Express, so that's kind of why they're feuding. And then it talks about the Royal Rumble, and Hulk Hogan's backstage, and he says that he's never felt this good before, and he says that he's going to win the Royal Rumble, and he's going to do it for all the Hulkamaniacs. And then Intercontinental Champion Mr. Perfect talks about how he's the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, and he's the perfect wrestler, and he's going to win the Royal Rumble because he's perfect. And Earthquake cuts a promo talking about how he's going to win the Royal Rumble, and it doesn't matter what number he enters, he's just going to go in there and destroy everybody. And then Undertaker and Brother Love cut a promo, because Undertaker had debuted at Survivor Series 1990, and this was his first ever Royal Rumble. And he says that Brother Love talks about how the Undertaker is going to destroy everybody in the Rumble match and make them rest in peace. And Undertaker says that he's dug graves, everybody's going to rest in peace. So I thought Undertaker cut a solid promo there. Smash cut a promo saying that it doesn't matter who's in the ring, he'll go after everybody. Hacksaw Jim Duggan says he's going to win the Royal Rumble because it's his type of match, and he's won it before, so he can win it again. Rick the Model Martel says he's going to win the Rumble because he's so good looking. And Hawk says that Hawk from the Legion of Doom, and obviously Smash is from Demolition, but Hawk from the Legion of Doom says that he's gonna win the Royal Rumble. Him and Animal aren't gonna get thrown out of the ring. And then he says what's gonna happen afterwards, and that was kind of supposed to be like intensity. And then Jake the Snake Roberts says he's gonna win the Royal Rumble because of his mind. He actually cut a really good promo. And then Macho King Randy Savage and Queen Sensational Sherry say he's gonna win the Royal Rumble because he's the greatest king of the World Wrestling Federation. And then that was it. That was the end of the pre-show. I thought this was a really good pre-show. I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed watching it to, help build up the matches and help hype up to want to see the show. And that's pretty much it for the pre-show. Now I'm going to watch the actual show itself. Okay, so now we have the real show itself, we had Gorilla Monsoon and Rowdy Roddy Piper on commentary. And they played the national anthem right in the beginning. And I'm writing this down because of the first time they did this, and I thought something was going to happen with Sergeant Slaughter, since he's the Iraq sympathizer, was going to come out and interrupt it or something, but it didn't happen. And then we had the first actual match on the show. It was the Orrington Express with Mr. Fuji versus the Walkers. And overall, I thought this was a really good opening tag team match. Before the match starts, Tanaka attacks Marty Jannetty from behind, and the Orrington Express beat the crap out of Shawn Michaels. And they go to do further some damage, and Marty Jannetty comes in, and the Walkers hit double super kicks on Tanaka, and they go for the double high cross body splash, but the Orrington Express roll out of the ring, and then the Walkers hit suicide dives on them, and then the Walkers dominate the matchup for a little while. There was one spot where Shawn Michaels was punching him 10 times in the corner, and Marty Jannetty was distracting the referee, and the Tanaka tried to come into the ring, and Shawn Michaels hit a moonsault on him. I thought that looked really cool. And then all hell breaks loose. The Walkers and the Orrington Express stop brawling with each other, and the Walkers go to dive, but the Orrington Express think they've outsmarted them, but then they go off the top rope and hit crossbodies on both of them simultaneously, separately. Then eventually Shawn Michaels get behind the referee's backs, gets hung up on the top ropes by the Orrington Express, and the Orrington Express dominate him. I forget the other guy's name. Just give me a second. Kato holds Shawn Michaels against the apron as Mr. Fuji hits him on the throat with his cane, which I thought looked really cool. And the Orrington Express just dominate Shawn Michaels, and eventually Marty Jannetty gets the hot tag, and eventually they stop going off on the Orrington Express, and Shawn Michaels tries to go up off the top rope, but Tanaka pushes Marty Jannetty into him, and he falls, and the Orrington Express hits a slingshot chop combo, and eventually they try to go for it again, but Shawn Michaels stops him, and Marty Jannetty rolls one of them up for the win, and the Walkers go over. Overall, though, I thought it was a really good tag team match. I think it was really good. It was really fast-paced, and I thought it was a really good tag team match. Okay, so next, the Macho King Randy Savage gets interviewed, and he talks about how he was the greatest WWF champion of all time, and he says that when Sergeant Slaughter becomes the brand new WWF champion tonight, he has promised me to give me a title shot. But then Mean Gene Okerlund says, "Well, aren't you getting no?" Sean Mooney then says, "Aren't you getting a little bit ahead of yourself? What if Ultimate Warrior retains his title tonight?" And then Savage says, "Well, I got Queen Sensational Sherry. I got her baiting the Ultimate Warrior." And she goes out to the win with Mean Gene Okerlund, and she talks about how honorable of a man that Sergeant Slaughter is, and that he does everything that he says he's going to do, and he will give the Macho King Randy Savage a WWF title match. But she calls out Ultimate Warrior to see if he'll do the same. And then the Ultimate Warrior comes out, and she asks Ultimate Warrior if he'll give him a title. He'll give Macho King Randy Savage a title shot. He doesn't respond. And then she tries to flirt with him, saying that she thought that he was the sexiest man. She always admired him from afar. She loved his big muscly back and big muscly chest, and she always wondered what it would be like if his hair was blowing in the breeze. And then she asks, "Now you're going to give him a title shot?" But he still doesn't respond. And then she kisses him, and then she says, "That was the most wonderful experience I've ever had." And she gets down on her knees and asks if she's going to give him a title shot. Ultimate Warrior's holding his fingers like this after she's kissed him. He smells them. And then he emphatically says, "No." And then he leaves, and Macho King Randy Savage was watching this backstage, and no, and he tears apart his locker room. He's like, I'm gonna get him now, and he rushes out of his locker room, jumps through the crowd, and goes up to like where they were doing like up to the stage where they were doing the interview, and he's all pissed off about it. I thought this was a really good segment, and it was a really good way to set up the feud even more between Ultimate Warrior and Macho King Randy Savage, and I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. Okay, so next match was the Barbarian with Bobby the Brain Heenan ringside versus the Big Boss Man. Overall, I thought this was an okay match. Nothing really too special. The storyline was more interesting than the match itself. And Big Boss Man dominates the first half of the match. He hits a wicked big boot, and he doesn't even on the Barbarian at first. He doesn't go down. Then he clotheslines him out of the ring, and he just really beats the crap out of him. And then eventually the Barbarian takes a cheap shot, and the Big Boss Man's foot gets tangled in the ropes, and he just beats the crap out of him while he's tangled in the ropes. And then they get back in the ring, and the Barbarian gets the Big Boss Man into a bear hug for a long ass time. But Boss Man's able to fight out of it, and but then he gets put into it again. But he's able to fight out of it. He starts hitting his comeback. He hits a wicked big boot, and he goes for a spine, but he hits a spine buster, but the Barbarian kicks out, and eventually the Barbarian hits a. They keep exchanging pinfalls on each other, and the Barbarian goes off the top rope, hits a flying clothesline. The Big Boss, and then the Big Boss Man hits a power driver, but the Barbarian's just able to get his fingers right on the ropes, which I thought was a good spot. And then eventually he goes off the top rope again, hits a crossbody, but the Big Boss Man reverses it and gets the pinfall. And he wins the match, and he celebrates with the crowd, and the Bobby the Brain Heenan runs away afterwards. So I thought it made sense he had Boss Man go over because of that whole storyline you're trying to do with Bobby the Brain Heenan. But overall, I thought this match, it was just okay, nothing special. Okay, so I apologize on the delay, but I've just been really busy the past few days. But I'm here to give you, and I'm here to finish the 1991 Royal Rumble review. So, um, we had an interview segment with General Adnan and Sergeant Slaughter, and General Adnan says something in Iraq or whatever the language they speak in down there, and then Sergeant Slaughter um, says that tonight he's going to defeat the Ultimate Puke for the WWF Championship, and you think that the world is in um, what is he talking? You said the world's chaotic now. Wait until I become the champion, and then he says that the Ultimate Puke is not the type of person for him to look up to. He's the type of person. He's a leader that people can look up to. He actually calls him a leader, and then he says that now Ultimate Puke, um, you're uh, you're no your seconds are now numbered as WWF champion, no longer your days, weeks, or hours. Um, and then he says that he's going to stay down, and leave him of his duty, and that is an order. I thought this was a really good promo by Slaughter, and the way he was acting was great. And I thought that he was actually acting really serious. And then Mean Gene Okerlund interviews the Ultimate Warrior, and he says that he's going to he's doesn't take orders from Sergeant Slaughter. He only takes orders from his warriors. And then he talks about how the power of the warrior is going to help him retain his World Wrestling Federation Championship, and he says that he is a leader that people can be proud of. Overall, I thought they both cut a really good promo, and I thought this was a really nice way to build up to their WWF Championship match. So now let's talk about it. Okay, so next match was a WWF Championship match. WWF Champion Ultimate Warrior versus Sergeant Slaughter with General Adnan ringside. And this was the first ever WWE Championship match at a Royal Rumble. And overall, I thought this was a solid match. Not a perfect match, but I thought it was solid. And I thought it accomplished what it needed to accomplish, so I thought in that aspect it was good. I thought this match worked. Ultimate Warrior comes out with a and just starts rushing to the ring, and Jamo Aden and Sergeant Slaughter try to clothesline him with the Iraq flag. Warrior ducks it, double clotheslines both of them, breaks the flag, tosses Slaughter out of the ring, and he clotheslines Jamo Adnan out of the ring. And after this, Jamo Adnan just goes backstage, and he doesn't stay out ringside. And Warrior beats the crap out of Slaughter with the flag, and eventually Warrior just pretty much beating the crap out of Slaughter. And then Queen Sensational Sherry comes out, and obviously because of what happened earlier on this show, she was out there to screw over the Ultimate Warrior, and Ultimate Warrior tries to bounce off the ropes, but Queen Sensational Sherry grabs his leg, so he chases after her, and they make their way up on the stage, and Macho King Randy Savage ambushes the Ultimate Warrior, beats the crap out of him, and he hits him in the back with a searchlight, or like a or with one of those lighting things they have that where they up where they do the interview section, and then he takes off, and then the referee's trying to count, but Slaughter's prevented it because he realizes he can't win the championship if Warriors gets counted out. So Warrior makes his way back to the ring. Slaughter eventually puts him back in, and Slaughter works over the injured back of Warrior by hitting a backbreaker on him, and he really works over the injured back with bear hugs. And then eventually Warrior tries to make a comeback, but his back's just too weak. So then Slaughter gets him into the camel clutch. But Warrior's feet are under the ropes, so it calls for a rope break. So that referee tells Slaughter to tells Slaughter to release the hold. So then eventually Slaughter's trying to hurt Warrior, but Warrior is unaffected by it, so he starts to make his comeback, and he bounces it from rope to rope and hits a clothesline on Slaughter, and then Queen Sensational Sherry comes back out, and Warrior grabs her, and Macho King Randy Savage tries to come out with the scepter to save her, but Warrior throws Queen Sensational Sherry onto the Macho King, and then Slaughter hits a wicked high knee to the back of Warrior, and he ends up falling in between in his head in between the ropes, and Slaughter chokes him in the ropes. And behind the referee's back, the Macho King Randy Savage hits Ultimate Warrior with the scepter, and then he takes off, and Sergeant Slaughter then hits like an elbow drop and covers Warrior, and gets the victory. And afterwards, Warrior chases after the Macho King Randy Savage. She tries to go find him, and Slaughter is the WWF champion. I kind of like the way they set this up. This sets up a future program between Savage and Warrior. And there's also, you needed to put the title, I thought, on Sergeant Slaughter just because of the heat that he had, and I thought it was a great idea. Well, I think it was a great idea. And also, I like the way that they had it where we didn't necessarily know whether or not Slaughter won. They kind of eased into it. So overall, I thought this was a solid match. It worked for so many different reasons. Okay, guys, I'm back. I apologize for I just had to take a little break from watching it just because of the fact that I went and ate dinner. I had to do some homework because I'm back in school now, and I ended up talking on the phone with my family, and I ended up watching NXT for this week, and I was also setting my Xbox back up, so I'm watching it off my Xbox now, which is nice for once. But I'm just going to finish this review. So we had the next match. It was Coco Beware versus the Mountie with Jimmy Hart ringside. This match was really just here because I think they had this match as the placeholder after the WWF title match, because I think they knew they were going to that everybody was going to be speechless after Sergeant Slaughter. Just like I am. But anyhow, I think they had known that everyone was going to be speechless after Sergeant Slaughter had won the WWF Championship. So they had to kind of put in a match as a placeholder. And this was that match. And the match wasn't bad. It was all right. They had a dead crowd because of the whole Slaughter situation. You know, they were having the commentators be distraught about it, so this match kind of got like a dead spot. Um, but it was all right. Um, and the Mountie obviously was somebody though that was supposed to be like a Royal Canadian police officer. He was Jacques Rougeau from the Rougeau brothers. Um, but the Rougeau brothers had disbanded as a tag team because Raymond ended up retiring. So Jacques disappeared off television and came back as the Mountie, and he would be the Mountie for a couple of years in the WWF. Um, and overall, I thought he did an okay job with this gimmick. I just never cared for the Mountie. It was just kind of just it was just an odd gimmick. Um, and it just he without Jock without Raymond, um, I don't think you can definitely see that Jock needed Raymond, and I get they had to do a character change because if he had just come out as Jock, he probably wouldn't have gotten over at all. At least here he kind of at least the Mountie kind of gave him a little bit of a chance to succeed, but he really didn't succeed much. The Rougeau brothers couldn't succeed without each other. One needed the other. Um, but this match, I overall was all right. The Mountie wins. But the match was just like it was probably a match you would probably see like on Superstars at that time or on television. It wasn't a pay-per-view quality match. It was just there as that dead spot to kind of to kind of quiet the crowd a little bit. So that because I don't think they wanted the crowd dead for the Rumble, and that's probably what would have happened if they had followed it up with the Rumble. But that's what this match was, though. Okay, so next, the Macho King Randy Savage and Queen Sensational Sherry get interviewed, and Macho King Randy Savage, Sean Mooney says that if it wasn't for Macho King Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior would still be the WWF champion, and Macho King Randy Savage says that he was Ultimate Warrior never was the WWF champion. He was the WWF champion, and he said that nobody says no to the Macho King Randy Savage. And now that Sergeant Slaughter is the WWF champion, he it can get his WWF title match. So then Sean Mooney says, "Well, aren't you worried that the Ultimate Warrior is going to come after you?" And then we hear somebody banging on the door. We're supposed to think that's the Ultimate Warrior. So Macho King, Randy Savage, and Queen Sensational Sherry take off. And that was it. Overall, like I said, I like this segment. It's setting up. It continues to intensify the Warrior Macho King Randy Savage feud. So I like this segment. Okay, so next we had an interview segment with Sergeant Slaughter and General Adnan again. And Sergeant Slaughter tells Mejan Oakland to shut up, you puke. And he says that I told you that I was the one giving orders around here. Everyone chose to follow the orders of the ultimate puke, but it ended up backfiring. And when he says he's going to do something, he delivers. And he says that now that he has the WWF Championship, he's going to take whatever he wants. And he says that unlike the military, he doesn't have to hold back about what he wants to do to his opponents. And he says that he is now going to unleash hell upon the World Wrestling Federation. And then General Adnan says stuff that I didn't understand. Overall, I thought it was a good interview segment. Okay, so next, the WWF fans wish all the troops luck that are fighting in Southern Arabia. They say, I wish you come home soon. I hope the war ends. Stuff like that. I thought it was pretty good. It was kind of adding to more of the whole Sergeant Slaughter thing, so it worked. Okay, next, so Superstars cut promos about why they're going to win the Royal Rumble match. I like that they show these because it helps build up each superstar as a credible threat. Um, Jake the Snake Roberts is backstage, and he talks about how 29 men are going to try to win the Royal Rumble, but he says that he has a lot of experience, and yet he says that he may not, but he's going to eliminate 29 other men, and he says that he's not a surgeon, but he's going to cut through every man to get to the model with Martel. Earthquake and Jimmy Hart are backstage, and Jimmy Hart's being really excited, and Earthquake says that everyone's going to try to go after him, but they're not going to be able to get to him, and he's going to fight them all off. And he says that he's going to save something special for Hulk Hogan. Greg the Hammer Valentine is backstage, and he says that he's going to drop elbows on everybody in the Royal Rumble match. The Texas Tornado is backstage, which is, I believe, Carry On Von Erich, but I could be wrong, but I know it's one of the Von Erichs. And he says that 29 men are gonna fight, and man's gonna be left standing and considered the best in the WWF right now. And he says that, but there's a storm of ruin, and I'm that storm, and I'm going to be the last man standing in the Royal Rumble match. And then the Legion of Doom are backstage, and they say that they talk about how life is like a roller coaster, so that must be what we are. And they say that they're going to eliminate 28 other men, and they're going to be the last two standing. Oh, what a rush! And then Undertaker and Brother Love are backstage, and Brother Love talks about how Undertaker dug 29 holes to bury people in because he's going to be the last man standing in the Royal Rumble, and by the end of the night, everyone's going to. And then the Undertaker says, "Rest in peace." Brother Love, really was not a good fit for the Undertaker as a manager, and you could definitely see that here. But I still thought Undertaker was good, even though it's probably me being biased about it. And then Hacksaw Jim Duggan is backstage, and he says that he's going to win the Royal Rumble because he won the first ever Royal Rumble, and that if anybody tries to come after him, he's gonna knock him down and throw him over the top rope. And then the model Rick Martel is backstage, and he says that it doesn't matter what you do, it's just how you look doing it. And he said that he's gonna give Jake the Snake Roberts some grooming tips and some guidance tips. And then the British Bulldog's backstage, and he said that he's gonna win the Royal Rumble pretty much. And Mr. Perfect and Bobby the Brain Heenan are backstage, and Bobby the Brain Heenan talks about how Mr. Perfect's gonna win the Royal Rumble. And then Tugboat's backstage, and he says he's gonna win the Royal Rumble. Toot toot. And he says that he's saving. He's gonna. Then when it comes down to him and Hulk Hogan, toot toot. I thought that was kind of stupid, but overall, Tugboat was an interesting character, but overall, I thought they all cut pretty good promos, except for Tugboat, and. But yeah, I thought everybody here cut a good promo, and yeah, it helps. I like that they do these, like I said, because it hypes you up to want to see the Royal Rumble. It makes them look like credible threats going into the Rumble. Okay, so next, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and Virgil get interviewed, and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, says that the reason that Virgil does all these tasks for him is because of money, because he bought the best bodyguard and the best tag team partner that money can buy. And he says that this is Virgil's first match in a ring, and we're going to see that what he's capable of. So overall, I thought this was solid. It really builds up the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, treating him more like crap, and it builds up the tag team match. So I thought it was good. Okay, so next match was the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes and Dustin Rhodes versus the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and Virgil. I thought this was a really good tag team match, not so much in-ring wise, but more of a storyline wise. So this is kind of one of those examples where story can make a match. DiBiase and Virgil attack the Dustin Rhodes from behind, and they beat the crap out of both of them, but then Dusty and Dustin Rhodes fight them off. Um, and eventually, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, tells Virgil to go in there and try to fight Dustin Rhodes. So he does, and Dustin Rhodes kicks his ass, and he just keeps kicking his ass. So Virgil says, "Let me show you how it's done." And he tags himself in, but he gets dominated as well. But eventually, um, Virgil comes in and saves him, and Virgil takes out the knee at Dustin Rhodes. And I forgot to mention too, this was the first Royal Rumble of Dustin Rhodes, and this isn't going to be the last Royal Rumble of Dustin Rhodes. Um, but yeah, Virgil and DiBiase dominate Dustin Rhodes and work over his leg, and eventually Virgil accidentally hits the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. So DiBiase gets pissed about it, and he beats the crap out of Virgil. He attacks him, he throws him out of the ring, and then the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, gets the hot tag. He goes off on the $1 Million Man, um, Ted DiBiase, with bubonic elbows, and he goes to charge at him in the corner, but the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, moves out of the way, rolls him up, and gets the win. But the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, is too concerned about his son Dustin and his injury to really care about that. And the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, then gets on the mic and says that Dusty and Dustin Rhodes saw what happens when you cross the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. And now, Virgil, it's time to find out what happens if you do, because I can make him do whatever I want, since um, everybody has a price. So he tells Virgil to get his $1 Million Championship title and put it around his waist. So Virgil reluctantly does it. He grabs it, and at first he drops it on the ground. He doesn't want to do it, but then the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, says that, remember, you got to feed your family. Remember what happened to your mother. So then Virgil gets upset, and he realizes that he has no choice. So he gets down on his knees and grabs the title. And the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, then says that that's living proof about what happens when that everybody has a price for the $1 Million Man. And then Virgil clonks the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, over the head with the $1 Million Championship, and finally turns on the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. They had been together for years, and it had just been building. And they finally went there with Virgil, and then Virgil afterwards ended up walking out of the ring and left DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, lying. And overall, I thought this was a great match, and I thought the aftermath was great because it set up the great feud between the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and Virgil, and it made sense, And this was something that um, wasn't just something where they came together random and were broken up, months later. They were together for years, and once Virgil finally broke out on his own and finally stood up for himself, everybody popped for it. So I thought this was really good. Okay, so next Hulk Hogan's gonna gets interviewed, and he said that he's gonna win the Royal Rumble match, and he's dedicating the match to all the men and women fighting in, um, Kuwait, and then Mean Gene Okerlund gets word that Sergeant Slaughter has defaced um, the American flag, and Hogan says that if he's done that, then he doesn't care if it's illegal or not. That's just something he can't come back from, and he says that his reign over the WWF as WWF champion is going to be like Saddam Hussein's reign over Kuwait, temporary. So overall, I thought he cut a really good promo, and obviously this sets up for Hogan versus Slaughter and their feud. Okay, so now on to the Royal Rumble match. I apologize that I haven't finished the review yet. I just was watching the Rumble, and I was tired from doing school and everything and cleaning my room all day, that I just said I'm going to finish it tomorrow, which is today, so that's what I'm doing. So let me get on to the Rumble. So we had number one was one half of the WWF Tag Team Champions, Bret the Hitman Hart. Number two was Dino Bravo with Jimmy Hart ringside, so I thought that was a decent start. I'm not like a huge fan of Dino Bravo, but he's an okay talent. And Bret Hart tries to hit a drop kick, and he immediately almost eliminates Dino Bravo, but Bravo was able to stay in. And they, fight for a little bit. Then number 3 was Greg the Hammer Valentine. And they he has a face-off with Dino Bravo, and we think they're gonna work together, but they end up fighting with each other. What I liked about this Rumble match was it really kind of felt like an every man for himself type match in the beginning. Jimmy Hart gets on the apron. He's upset that Greg the Hammer Valentine's beating him up, and Greg the Hammer Valentine is also no longer with Jimmy Hart. So, because they had been in an alliance for a while, as I talked about in the last retro episode, and they've been in an alliance. But eventually, Greg the Hammer Valentine eliminates Dino Bravo, and Jimmy Hart gets upset about it. He gets up on the apron, but Greg the Hammer Valentine pushes him off. They still have that whole rule where the manager can only be down there until the guy gets eliminated. Their guy gets eliminated. And so then Bret Hart and Greg the Hammer Valentine fight for a little bit. And then number 4 was Paul Rama with Slick ringside. A member of Power and Glory. And Paul Rama and Greg the Hammer Valentine work together for about 4 seconds. And then eventually they start fighting with each other. But they still kind of work together, but they don't completely work together. And then number 5 was the Texas Tornado, best known. I am actually going to look this up right now just because I have the file open on Google. But he's best known as. I just want to make sure I was right. Yeah, I was right. He's best known as Kerry Von Erich. And he cleans house for a little bit. He actually ends up hitting a wicked right hand onto Greg the Hammer Valentine. But the numbers game catch up to him. And then number 6 was the Model Wick Motel. And he actually does pretty well. And number 7 was Saba Simba, best known as Tony Atlas. I actually kind of did some research on this, that Tony Atlas had left the WWF years ago, and he went under some really bad drug abuse. And he said that he felt, he did stuff to help motivate him and help him. So he came back to the WWF in 1991. I don't know if it was 91 or 92, but it doesn't. I don't think it said exactly. And he was Saba Simba, which didn't really get over. A lot of the fans thought this was a racist gimmick. So it just didn't get over. And I don't really blame him, because when he came out, it didn't get over with me either. It's really weird. So it didn't really last too long, but then number 8 was Bushwhacker Butch, and Saba Simba tries to eliminate the Model Wick Motel, but the Model Wick Motel ends up reversing it and puts himself and Saba Simba over the top rope, and he eliminates Saba Simba. But since the Model Wick Motel's feet didn't touch the floor, he's still legal in the match. And then number 9 was Jake the Snake Roberts, and he immediately just beats the crap out of the Model Wick Motel, because that's all he really wants to beat up. That's all he cares about. He beats the crap out of him. And it gets to the point where the Model Wick Motel goes through the middle rope outside the ring, but he's not eliminated since he didn't go over the top rope. And Jake the Snake Roberts follows him, but same thing. He doesn't go over the top rope either, and he eventually gets caught by Greg the Hammer Valentine, so he beats him up, and the Model Wick Motel goes over the top rope but lands on the apron, so he doesn't get eliminated. And he stands there so that way Jake the Snake Roberts can't get his hands on him. But Jake the Snake Roberts tries to eliminate him by firing away with right hands, but the Model Wick Motel is able to hold on. So I thought this was good stuff, good setup to the feud. And then number 10 was the final member of Power and Glory, Hercules, with Slick ringside. And during his entrance, Paul Rama tries to jump and do a high crossbody on Jake the Snake Roberts, but he moves out of the way and ends up getting eliminated. So Jake the Snake Roberts eliminates Paul Rama, and then number 11 was Tito Santana. And he immediately goes after his former tag team partner, the model Rick Martel. I thought that was great. And then number 12 was Undertaker with Brother Love. I just have to fix that. And he immediately goes after Bret the Hitman Hart. He eliminates Bret the Hitman Hart by grabbing both hands on his throat and just tosses him over the top rope. Then he eliminates Bushwhacker Butch. And, I thought that was nice. And Jake the Snake Roberts is still trying to get his hands on the model Rick Martel. He really wants to get his hands on him. He's beating the crap out of him. But he keeps hanging on to the apron. And eventually, from the apron, the model Rick Martel pulls Jake the Snake Roberts out of the ring and eliminates him. I thought that was great. And it intensifies the feud between them even more. Then number 13 was Superfly Jimmy Snuka. Number 14 was the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith. To make sure I'm not missing anything. And he cleans house for a while. And then number 15 was Demolition Smash with Mr. Fuji inside. Number 16 was the Legion of Doom's Hawk. Number 17 was Shane Douglas. And during this, The Undertaker eliminates the Texas Tornado. Hawk eliminates Superfly Jimmy Snuka immediately right afterwards. So I thought that was a good sequence. Shane Douglas looked really strong in this match as well. I thought he looked really strong. And then it's time for number 18 to come out, but he never shows up. The timer goes down and number 18 just never shows. And at the end of the video, when I'm done reviewing this match, when I get to number 30, I'll say who it is. But he never shows up, and when number 19 comes out, he ends up forfeiting the match since he didn't come out when he was supposed to. I think that makes sense. And number 19 was Animal. And the final member of the tag team of the Legion of Doom. And the Legion of Doom work together to eliminate The Undertaker. And they end up double clotheslining him over the top rope. Which, since I'm an Undertaker mark, I wasn't a huge fan of. But an Undertaker, obviously, I should mention, had just debuted at Survivor Series 1990. He looked really dominant there. And he looked dominant in this match. He eliminated 3 people, I believe. And he really looked really dominant. And he also really the Undertaker would become the biggest star probably in professional wrestling ever, and the most consistent star of professional wrestling. So, and then immediately though, after the Legion of Doom eliminate the Undertaker, the model Rick Martel eliminates Hawk. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then number 20 was Demolition's Crush, which I thought, I always forget that Crush was in Demolition, but he was. So, and number 21 was Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and he immediately goes after everybody, starts going off on him. Number 22 was Earthquake with Jimmy Hart ringside, and he immediately eliminates Animal, and really looks dominant. And I thought he actually eliminated a lot more people and cleaned up the winner a lot more than he did. And then number 23 was Mr. Perfect with Bobby the Brain Heenan inside. And Mr. Perfect actually has a smart approach. He actually takes his time getting to the ring, which I thought made sense. And it made him look like a really smart wrestler. But when he finally gets in there, Hacksaw Jim Duggan beats the crap out of him. And he goes to eliminate him, but Mr. Perfect instead eliminates him. And I thought that was nice. Then number 24 was Hulk Hogan, and he immediately he immediately goes in there and eliminates Smash. And then he eliminates Greg the Hammer Valentine, who nearly broke the record of longevity in a Rumble match, but he didn't. He lasted 44 minutes and 3 seconds, so he didn't quite break the record. That was previously set by the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. And then number 25 was Haiku. And number 26 was Jim the Anvil Neidhart. He came in a House on Fire. Number 27 was, well, actually, before I say that, then Smash was punching Hulk Hogan in the... Actually, no, that's not what happened. Sorry, I have to scroll down my notes. Earthquake looked really dominant. There was a spot where Tito Santana tried to really level away with right hands on Hogan, on Earthquake, but they have no effect on him, so he just headbutts him and eliminates Tito Santana. And then the next entrant, which was entrant number... entrant number 27, was Bushwhacker Luke, and he does his old Bushwhacker walk where he walks like this, and he gets in the ring and immediately just gets thrown out by Earthquake, and he ends up just walking away like this. I always thought that was a funny spot in the Rumble, but he didn't break the Warlord's record of 2 seconds in a Rumble match. He lasted 4 seconds, so he didn't quite break it. And then the match continues. Let's just make sure I don't miss anything. So then number 28 was the Nasty Boys, Brian Knobbs. They only had one member of the Nasty Boy in this match, and it was Brian Knobbs. And I can see why he didn't use his name very much, because it's a very generic name. And he does pretty good in the Rumble. He eliminates Hercules. And then Crush was punching Hulk Hogan in the corner, but Hogan just ends up throwing him out of the ring and eliminates him. Then number 29 was the Warlord. He dominates the match for a little bit, but then he comes face to face with Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan ends up eliminating Warlord again with a clothesline. So it seems like Warlord doesn't have very much luck when it comes to facing Hulk Hogan in a Rumble match. Brian Knobbs eliminates Shane Douglas, who looked pretty good in this Royal Rumble match. And then number 30, the final number, was Tugboat. So that obviously means that if you didn't know, number 18 ended up being the Macho King Randy Savage. But because of what happened with this whole the whole Ultimate Warrior situation, he chose to no-show the Royal Rumble, which I thought was smart. And there was no need to utilize Macho King Randy Savage anymore, so I was fine with him not being in the match. It made sense. He wanted to get it out of there before Warrior got his hands on him. So Tugboat looks pretty strong in the match. He goes after Hulk Hogan, and he tries to eliminate him, but Hogan's able to hang on, so then Hogan goes over and eliminates him. And then the British Bulldog, Mr. Perfect, goes to go up on the top rope, and the British Bulldog knocked him off and hits a drop kick off the top rope, eliminating Mr. Perfect. And then the model, Rick Martel, eliminates Jim the Anvil Neidhart. And Haiku goes to charge at the British Bulldog in the ropes, but the British Bulldog pulls the rope down, so he ends up getting eliminated. And then the British Bulldog ends up eliminating the model, Rick Martel, who ended up breaking the longest longevity in a Royal Rumble match at 52 minutes and 17 seconds. So he ended up setting the record here, which I thought was really impressive, and he looked really strong in the match. He ended up staying in the match in very innovative ways. I couldn't think of the word for a second there. So then it's down to the final four. It's the British Bulldog, Brian Knobbs, Earthquake, and Hulk Hogan. And Brian Knobbs and Earthquake work together. They eliminate the British Bulldogs, and then it's down to Knobbs, Earthquake, and Hulk Hogan. And Brian Knobbs and Earthquake both keep dropping elbows on Hogan. And then Earthquake hits his finisher. I don't know what he called it at the time, but he ends up just dropping all his weight down and onto Hogan. and they're high fiving about it, shaking hands, and they think that Hogan's down for the count. But then Hogan immediately gets up and shakes it off, and he lays them both out with a clothesline. Hits a big boot on Brian Knobbs, eliminates him. So then it's down to Earthquake and Hulk Hogan. Hogan hits a bunch of right hands on Earthquake, hits a big boot, goes for the body slam, but Earthquake's just too big for him to lift, so he ends up he ends up falling on Hogan, and then Earthquake hits a couple of elbow drops on Hogan. He hits a wicked splash on him, and then Earthquake thinks that Hogan's down for the count, hits a bunch of right hands on Hogan, but Hogan has no effect from it, and he hulks up from it, and Hogan hits a bunch of right hands, a big boot, then he does hit the body slam, and he clotheslines Earthquake out of the ring and eliminates him, and Hogan ends up winning the Royal Rumble, and Hogan made history here as well because he was the first superstar ever to be a two-time Royal Rumble winner and to win it back-to-back, so I thought that's obviously really impressive. I'm not going to complain that Hogan won it here just because of the fact that it made sense. Because he was setting up the whole Sergeant Slaughter Hogan match. You needed to make Hogan look really strong. And obviously you had, I forgot to mention Earthquake and Hogan who had history here. So it made sense for them to be the final two because you had Earthquake who had taken out Hogan for a year. They had the match at SummerSlam and they had that big feud. So this was kind of like the blow off. And you were setting up Hogan to go after Slaughter for his WWF Championship, and you were really building into that feud, so you needed to have Hogan have a big victory, and this was that big victory to do so, to kind of say that, hey, I'm the next threat coming after your title. So overall, I thought this was good, and I thought the Rumble was really good. I thought the match itself felt different than the other Rumble matches. I thought this match here really made it look like that it was important to win. And I thought, Rick the model, Rick Martel, they made him look really strong. They made Rick the Hammer Valentine look really strong. Who else did I like in this match? I liked the way they made the Texas Tornado looked. I thought he looked really good in this match. And I thought the Hitman Hart looked pretty strong in this match as well. Undertaker looked really good in this match. And Jake the Snake Roberts, and you were looked really good, and you also continued to set up the Model Rick Martel and Jake the Snake Roberts feud. And Earthquake obviously looked really strong, and overall I thought this was a really good Rumble match. So yeah, really good. Okay, so the aftermath of the Rumble, kind of where the WWF had went, was after this set up the there's really only two things that I can really say that was set up, because that's kind of what I know. This obviously set up the whole Ultimate Warrior Macho King Randy Savage career versus career match, because they had the feud had escalated after this point. And I'll say to be a 2P announce who won the match. And this also, they were really setting up the WWF Championship match between WWF Champion Sergeant Slaughter and Hulk Hogan, and for WrestleMania 7, and they continue with that. That's kind of where the WWF kind of went, and obviously I thought they went in great directions. Slaughter went on to get a tremendous amount of heat. Like, it was worse than before. It got to the point where they had to change the WrestleMania venue. I don't know if they still did it. I don't know if they did it, if we knew they were going to do it at the time or not. Obviously, I think they pre-planned it. It led to a series of to Warrior trying to get his rematch and getting the title back from Sergeant Slaughter, but Queen Sensational Sherry kept screwing him over. It led to the blow-off match between Hulk Hogan and Earthquake in a stretcher match to finally end off that feud. And I believe it also, I can kind of say that I believe it led to the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase versus Virgil at WrestleMania 7. Once they were going to finally come to blows, which I thought was awesome. It led to the model Rick Martel versus Jake the Snake Roberts at WrestleMania 7. What else did it lead to? It led to the Undertaker having his first WrestleMania match at WrestleMania 7 against Superfly Jimmy Snuka. I'm trying to think of what else came from this. I don't really know what else. I can't really think of anything else, but a lot of WrestleMania matches were set up here, which I think is awesome. And when I review WrestleMania 7, you'll kind of find out where those matches went. If you should already know, but if you don't know, wait till the WrestleMania review series, and you'll find out where those matches ended up going. So overall, I thought this Royal Rumble actually was a really good show. I thought it had a lot of really enjoyable stuff on it. Let me just kind of revisit my notes so that way I can kind of go through it. I thought the pre-show was good. It really did a good job explaining what the purpose of these matches were. I thought the Orrington Express versus the Rockers was a very good in-ring tag team match. Barbarian versus Big Boss Man was okay. Had some type of purpose of happening, but the match itself wasn't really all that special. Slaughter and Warrior had a solid match, but the storyline was definitely more interesting. And the stuff that was going on, setting up for the WrestleMania 7 match between the Macho King, Randy Savage, and Ultimate Warrior, I thought was really good, though. Coco Beware versus the Mountie was just there, but that's okay. But it was still kind of an alright match. I thought the Superstars cutting promos about why they're gonna win the Rumble was good. I like watching those. The tag team match with Dusty and Dustin Rhodes versus the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase and Virgil, I thought was really good as a storyline match, and Virgil finally turning on the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase was really good. And I thought the Rumble match was really good, set up a lot of WrestleMania angles, and I thought that was really good in that aspect. And obviously they were doing that whole storyline with Sergeant Slaughter, which helped make this show better. So I thought this was actually a really good Royal Rumble. I think this is probably the best one that I've seen out of watching these Rumbles. So I thought overall 1991 was a really good Royal Rumble. I would totally recommend it. Alright, that's pretty much it, guys. Sorry it took me so long to get this review up. But make sure to subscribe to this channel, my Owen the Talkinator channel, and my CM Brothers channel. And I will talk to you guys next time.